speaking of people that are very fast, we will talk about the Miami Dolphins and what to expect on the joint practice scene in the game this weekend in just a few minutes. But anything else from practice yesterday that you want to talk about? I definitely want to talk about the situational work, but what to you is the big takeaway from practice yesterday?
I mean, that was going to be like my big thing. I thought the offense looked extremely sharp yesterday, like extremely sharp. Like it's just one of those practices where like, I've been a part of it playing where it's like everybody is locked in. Like the angles are good in the run game. The timing's good on some of the jet sweep stuff. Like the fakes by the quarterback it's perfectly timed up. The spacing and the route concepts are great. And, even like some of the quarterback run stuff, just the way it times up. You're just like, man, that looks awesome. And I think that was the one thing, in addition to the situational stuff, that really stuck out to me. Is it just like, I think it's like every fourth practice, the offense just looks like totally on it. And I think this is one of those days, and probably the best they've looked. And so, whatever they had for breakfast that morning, they definitely need to do it again because they were locked in and they look sharp.
Yeah, no, for sure. I thought like even just starting in the first, O on D periods where they're doing some team run stuff, and the first run, I feel like it was just like, oh, that's out. Like that's real.
Yeah.
That's not a training camp run.
Was that the one Austin Eckler? That was 4 minute, but Austin Eckler had a big run.
Yeah,
in 4
Eckler.
minute.
That was the first play of the 4 minute. Eckler got out, and you're like, that's not how you want to start a 4 minute drill if you're a defense. But no, I think it was B-Rob, but Eckler had a couple too in team run where like they're into the second level of the defense, and the defensive coaches were obviously not thrilled. Joe Witt Jr. is yelling at everybody. Daryl Tapp is yelling at everybody. Like that
was like a constant metronome of yelling. Daryl Tapp was just like, "Come on, get off the ball, strike them back," and it was just like there was no like it was just like a constant thing for the last 30 minutes of practice because of kind of the. Again, how efficiently the offense is running the football.
Yeah, I think they were also trying to strike up some urgency in that defense. There's a point, there's a screen pass earlier in the practice where BSJ doesn't get where Joe Witt Jr. wants them. And Joe just gets right up on him and he's like, you got to get your pads on him. You got to get here. And like, they're letting him have it. And I think that's part like motivation. And like these days happen too. This is not some massive grand indictment of the Commander's defense. Sure. Like we are in the dog days of training camp. Some days you just come out sluggish. The offense was sharp, like credit to the offense. But, as defensive coaches, you're not just being like, it happens. Like you're trying to fix it. You're trying to see if you can turn your guys around in the middle of practice. And they couldn't yesterday, which gets us to the situational drills, which is the end of practice. And so they did two different periods and different, not just like they repeated the same one. The two offense went up against the one defense. And to me, like actually, Logan, I'd be curious to ask you, is it ever presented as like one big drill? Because if you want to take it ones to ones, it was like, hey, defense, we need to stop to get the ball back to the offense. Because they did 4 minute defense, 2 minute offense for the ones. Or is it just two totally separate periods? That's
a really good question. I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it, honestly. But I do think that's a decent way to kind of characterize it if that's what you want to do. I've never had that experience, but I did think it was funny at the time that they went 4 minute with one group and 2 minute with the other, but that makes more sense now that you mention it. And so maybe Dan is excellent. I will say at that kind of stuff. I do remember being in Atlanta with him and kind of being in every team meeting in season and even in the off season. We'd have a situation come up in practice and we'd watch and talk through it for about 15 minutes every single day. We did something like that. So I do think that would be something he would definitely kind of talk through. Hey, 4 minute is this. We got to get a stop. Defensively, we'll get the stop, get the ball back to our offense, and work a 2 minute drill. And I think just seeing the mechanic of that is again, I don't know if they did that or not, but something that Dan was dogmatic about when I was with him in Atlanta.
It would make a lot of sense if they set it up that way. Like, hey, and also like it's the kind of thing where you could have your one offense on the sideline cheering on your one defense. For most of the time, it's like offense cheering on offense, defense cheering on defense. It's very separated in camp. I didn't see any of that, but like that would be kind of a cool way to set it up. Yeah. Anyway, so they go 4 minute first, where the two offenses on the one defense. And as we just said, it opens up with a big run to Eckler, and then they just are able to get it done. Marcus has some good runs in there, including one where he slides right before the sideline, like good game management out of him. A couple of completions, some big runs, and then ultimately the drive concludes, Logan, when Marcus gets a D lineman to jump on a 3rd and short on a hard count, and they walk off, win the game on a hard count. Defensive offsides. Sam Cosmi, by the way, I don't know if you saw this. The back judge didn't throw, or the side judge didn't throw his actual like physical flag, and Cosmi runs up. He's like, "Do you have a flag?" Because Sam Cosmi wanted to throw the yellow hanky and signify that his side had won the drill. But what else did you see on that 4-minute situation? And really, I would say more so from the defense, because it's kind of on them in terms of the drill. Like, we can talk about the offense, good job by the twos, but you want to get a stop defensively there is really kind of the bigger story.
Yeah, so I think the thing is, like, in 4 minute, like, what you're really looking for is, you're not looking for a chunk play, but if you do get a chunk play, you usually win the drill, right? And I think to start the drill off with what seemed to be like a 40-yard run from Austin Eckler. And again, it was to the offensive left and we stand on the offensive right. So I couldn't really see I remember what it was. It was a duo play basically. And they had kind of a funky formation that they lined up with, a lot of different personnel on the field. And I think it looked like an obvious misfit to me from just how the run hit. Like, usually what you're gauging is like, there's the formation. This is how the linebacker should fit. And if the running back just doesn't even stop as he runs through the hole, usually they just misfit the gaps there. And that's why you get in those kind of unusual formations. So that ended up being, what'd you say, Craig? Like 30-yard run, right? 30-yard run.
I mean, they marked it off as like a 30-yard run. I honestly thought it might have been a house call.
Yeah, because there was one more guy to beat, but again, you're trying to work the drill.
There was one more guy to beat, and Eckler was beating him.
Yeah. And so then the next play is like, quarterback kind of zone read type thing. And Mariota's excellent at that. Keeper. And I think that's the one where Mariota slides down. Good thinking there. And then you're in that kind of short yardage situation. Chris Rodriguez gets a run for 2 yards, run for 2 yards. You're in a 3rd and 5 kind of situation. And they jump offside. So to me, that's about as poorly as that could have gone for the defense, like in terms of just scripting it out. And again, like you said, those days do happen, right? There are days where the defense looks amazing, the offense can't do anything. But in terms of like how you script a 4-minute period, that is exactly what you want from the offense. Like, you don't really have to throw the football. You're getting to some creative stuff, but nothing too creative. I think they ran a jet sweep in there maybe also, like that kind of thing. And it just and it was like what I said before, everything hit. You put that weird formation in, so they do misfit it. They misfit it, it's a big run. You put this jet sweep in out of this formation, so they overload to this side. It's a 10-yard gain. They run the keeper, they all drop out underneath the keeper, and Mariota ends up sliding for a 10. It just was like when you call those plays, it's the exact result you're looking for. So it literally went about as well as it could have gone for the for the offense. And defensively, like, that's something I was talking about with Fletch the other day. Like, there are days where I think the defense is playing really good football. They're fitting runs well. They're locked in. They ask the dime and nickel players to do a lot in terms of fitting from depth, but then there are days where they kind of misfit it, and because that is a challenging fit for some of those off-ball players, and they seem to get gashed, like you were talking about with the B-Rob thing too. So that's something I'm kind of keeping an eye on, because that was a little bit of a issue in Dallas. Like they played decent run defense, but they'd give up kind of these games where they give up 120 yards rushing. So I'm kind of trying to figure out whether that's a systematic thing or whether that's just kind of people learning a new defense here in Washington. So again, I'm not saying this is the worst thing or the best thing. I'm just saying it's an observation about one day of practice that and one 4-minute drill where the defense looked a little unsettled and the offense looked great.
Yeah, and you're certainly hoping that misfits aren't a regular thing with Bobby Wagner getting everybody in place. And Bobby was out there for, I think, that drill yesterday. So
yeah, I'll defer to you on that.
Yeah, overall, is my concern level super high with Bobby Wagner getting everybody lined up and getting things where they need to be over the course of a season? No, but if there's a systematic weakness that some teams are going to be able to exploit, that's less than ideal, but these things happen, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, Miami has an interesting run game, so we'll see what happens this weekend with that. And obviously, as we get going in the season, kind of be a week by week thing. And the cool part I think about for me doing this podcast with you is like sometimes you're really on that stuff ahead of time where it's like, this is the kind of run play that is causing harm. This team runs that run play. How do they adjust? And we can kind of watch that going into the week on a much higher level, which is fun. So that's why you subscribe to the podcast, kids. All right. So the offense, the two offense wins the day. They let the one offense back on the field, despite the one defense not getting the stop, quote unquote. They let the 2-minute drill happen anyway. And man, it was the one offense versus like a 2.5 defense. You had some twos and some threes out there, and it looked like it was supposed to. If your one offense is good and you're going against backups, they hot knife buttered through that defense. Bang, bang, bang. I actually have the plays in my notes. They start off with a completion to Zacchaeus. Then Jaden has a really nice rollout completion to Zach Ertz. One play that I would love to talk about, they get a huge, wide open, easy completion to Zach Ertz to get down to the 10. B-Rob runs to the 5. You have the miss to Terry, kind of a weird play where Jaden winds up keeping it, running into the back of the O-line again, and now you're on third down. And there's kind of like this, all of a sudden, the coaches that get in their ear and they're like, hey, clock's running. They rush to the line of scrimmage because, obviously the clock's running, it's third down. And they get that back shoulder TV touchdown to Terry McLaurin, which you can watch on the Commander's social media. And then Terry starts yelling at people that he plays like he's 6'4". So what stuck out to you from that 2-minute drill? And I definitely would like to talk about the one to Ertz, but full playbook or full slate for you, empty slate. What did you see?
Yeah, so I think the thing that stuck out to me about that 2 minutes specifically was just like the total mastery by Jaden Daniels. Like he just looked like in control. Like there's, we talk a lot about, are his feet on time? Is he, It just was like, I get to the top of my drop and the ball is out. And the defense really had no opportunity. I think the one to Zacchaeus was great. The first one to Zach was really nice because it's kind of like leading him away from a tight coverage player. There's someone rolling down. Zach slides, catches that football. And then the next one is like a corner route. And the confidence that he has in Zach to win. And I think that, everyone talks about like, what is a good ecosystem for a quarterback? And it's trusting your guy to win, right? And there's certain guys when you're watching and he's out there or Marcus is out there and you kind of look at the receivers and you're like, ooh, like these guys are all good players, but who do I trust to consistently win? And so like with that one group, it's like, it's Terry, it's Zach, and like he looks over there, the coverage disperses well. And it's not like he's throwing to Zach. It's like, I don't remember the exact coverage cell, but it's like some type of 2. Like there's a little bit of a void there for the corner, and he's throwing to grass. Like he's throwing the ball before Zach's even out of his cut. And they are just so locked in on the same page that Zach's able to run under it effortlessly because Zach does a good job kind of stemming up that defender, breaking out, and it's right there. So that was awesome. Then you mentioned the zone read quarterback run thing where he runs into the back of the offensive line. Good job by the defense there, actually, being locked in and like being assignment sound. And then the fade to Terry was like really sick. It was really sick because he walks up. They have a play called, you can tell, and he just looks at Terry, gives him a little bit of a kind of just a super subtle hand signal, and then doesn't even take a beat. They go on the quick, said hut, and he doesn't wait for Terry to get open. He knows Terry's going to win. He puts that ball out there, and I thought, to your point about like managing the clock, there was like 24 seconds left. So if that ball is incomplete, they still have an opportunity to run more plays because I think that was third down or second down. I don't remember exactly what it was. Yeah.
I think it was third because you had a miss to Terry on first down where like
and then the run,
no one was open. But like even that play, you talk about the mastery, like no one's open and Jaden is like, all right, I'm going to give Terry a little bit of a shot here, but like I'm not going to sit here and run around and waste time. I don't have time to waste time. I'm not going to extend the play. Like he gets through his progressions. I was actually listening to an interview with Cliff yesterday. Cliff was on Scoop City with Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel, the new podcast they have from The Athletic. And Diana asked Cliff, like, what's kind of Jaden's superpower early on here? And Cliff goes, he gets through his progressions really well. Like a lot of young quarterbacks get hung up on their first one. And Jaden is like, nope. And Jaden got through everything, realized there's nothing there, but also because of the situation was like, I can't then extend the play and waste time. He throws a ball like kind of out of the end zone. Terry somehow gets a hand on it, but it falls incomplete, and you live to see the next down. So then there was the zone read, second down, and so this is third down.
Yeah, and it just was like the whole process, like because the clock's running. They just ran a run.
Right.
The clock's running. He gets the play call, and one of the things about this offense that we've seen from camp, we saw it a little bit in the preseason, is they're so quick at getting the play in. They're so good at it because it's all kind of this air raidy college hand signal, like we're getting everybody on the same page right now, and the defense is barely set, and like you can just tell like Terry might have been running a slant. I have no idea, but he just gives them a little bit of whatever. Throws the fade, perfect ball. Terry makes a play, right? Because that's what Terry does. And it just was like knowing your matchups, understanding what you want to do with the football, and then the anticipatory element of the throws he made was also great. And again, I don't want to say he's like God or anything here, but like it was very sharp from him, but also from the entire offense. Like protection was good. The routes were awesome. We mentioned the second route to Zach on the corner. Like that's big time stuff, man. Like Zach's keeping the space. You understand where it's going to be. Ball's out easy, and he gets out of bounds. So that was much like the 4-minute, which went about as well. Like I felt like there was a little bit of luck. Defense misfits some stuff in the 4-minute. This was the offense kind of just dictating tempo, dictating opportunity, and I think Jaden did a great job getting the football where it needed to go with great accuracy and understanding the situation at a really high level.
Yeah, I think it also showed the importance of getting a chunk play or two early in a 2-minute drive because they just go bang, 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 and all of a sudden they're inside the 10-yard line. They're at the 6-yard line like that. Yeah. And that gives you the time where you're not rushing. Like if you can get inside the 10 and have 4 plays, that is ideal in a 2-minute because they were down 17-13 and thus they need a touchdown. And so to have that time, and like you said, they had time for one more play if that fade falls incomplete because of how they manage the clock. And frankly, time for, to draw a penalty perhaps and get another first down. So it's you have time for 4+ plays, even though you're inside the 10, hopefully you're scoring. But if on third down you draw a PI, but you didn't leave yourself enough time to take advantage of getting 2 or 3 plays from the 1-yard line, well, that's not as good as if you did. And so the ability to quickly get down into a prime strike zone was great. Obviously, they didn't need it. They get the touchdown. Good job. Anything else from practice yesterday before we look ahead to Miami?
Well, probably my favorite thing from obviously those drills were great. My favorite thing was from practice yesterday was the 2nd and long, 3rd and long drill that they did, which I think was right after that maybe. And I just think like there's so many times in an NFL football game where that situation comes up. 2nd and long, 2nd and 10, maybe you got a penalty, 2nd and 15, negative run, 2nd and 11. And that's a tough spot to be in. And so how do you manage that? How do you say, hey, we got to get to 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, live to play another day? And I think I've done that drill before, but as I've studied football more and been on this side of it, you see how absolutely critical that is for game management. And then again, that 3rd and long situation also, because the defense is going to have a certain response. They're going to bring a little bit more pressure. They're going to heat you up. Like, how are our protections? Where's the answer? Especially on 2nd and long, because you see quarterbacks, I think, sometimes try to push the football down the field. But hey, we can survive on a check down because if we get to 3rd and 4, we're doing okay. So I love that drill because it feels like the most real football you're going to get in a bad situation. And so I love that they're drilling that because because think about how many times last year, just as an example, because that's what we're very familiar with, lots of fans are, you get an incomplete pass on 1st down at 2nd and 10. What is your plan to get to a 3rd and manageable? And here we got to see some of Cliff's thought process on how to do that and how Joe Witt's going to handle those situations. And I think for a fan of like detailed football, it was really cool to see that drill. And I thought it was like maybe the most beneficial drill of the day for the team. They're all beneficial, but it just in terms of like something that you're going to have to do. And if you can get good at that, you're going to win some games because you're going to steal possessions basically.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, everything is situational. So I think that the emphasis on situational football, like, it's 2nd and 7 in the middle of the second quarter. Like, technically that's a situation, but really the game is going to come down to those 2nd and longs to like, you're going to have one of those on a drive, on a lot of drives, or a 3rd and short, like goal line, red zone. Like, these situations are going to come up on almost every single drive unless you just went 3 and out, in which case you still probably were in 2nd and long at some point. I love how much they're kind of situationing up practice. Like, everything has a It's not just like, hey, there's 20 minutes on the clock for the period and we're just going to run plays. Those are being minimized. Like you do have some team running stuff yesterday, but everything seems to be within the context of a game. And I just think that's a great way to practice.